Now we'll get to the section about diversity. Recently, Ola made a video about this in which she said she was just gonna track general diversity and not like specific stuff, because it can be hard to determine that, and she made some good points. I'll try to remember to link the video down below. For 2019, I did track various terms of diversity. It turns out there was some diversity I wasn't tracking that I ended up reading books in. So I read a couple of books with fat main characters. I read a couple of books with Muslim main characters. That is not yet in these graphs, but I did read those books. Anyway, so I'm not sure yet what I'm gonna do for 2020, but well, I wanted to show you these graphs anyway, but it might be different next year. In general, and there may be some inaccuracies, 56% of the books I have classified as yes, there is some diversity in the main character or the main characters. No, 27%, and some, 17%. Some is what if the diversity element is in more like the side characters, but we can't exclude that there are some inaccuracies in some of these graphs or something with the math formula or whatever. Obviously this graph could be better. I think it's already pretty good, but a lot of the, especially older books on my TBR, are not that diverse, because I feel like diversity is something that's getting more attention like the past while, especially in young adult fiction, whereas books published quite a few years ago, there wasn't as much about that then. Obviously the books are on my TBR. I don't exactly know what's in them. That's just based on what I know of it. So I think no will always be at least some part of it, but I'm glad we also have a lot of yes. This graph is about trigger warnings, and this might be a bit weird, but that's just something for myself. So I have said yes, 32% of the books I read should have some kind of trigger warning, and no for 68%. This is just something I do for myself personally. Like if there is sort of heavy elements or triggering elements possibly in a book, then I set this to yes. If there isn't, I set it to no. This is mostly because after that in the spreadsheet there I have a section with notes, and then I write down there what that specific element or elements is or are. That's just for myself as to remember sort of thing. So okay, so this is diversity for the main characters, so only the yeses and not the sums, if that makes sense. Sometimes a book has more than one type of diversity. In that case, it is in both categories. So we have some neurodiversity, some mental health. Sometimes it's difficult to estimate when it is mental health. LGBT+, person of color, disability, health and illness. Those are the 6 categories I was tracking in 2019. So I feel that body type and religion are missing there. But I don't know what I'm gonna do going forward, if I want to add those or if I want to scrap it all together. I'm also not entirely sure, because some people find that neurodiversity also includes like some elements of mental health, like OCD, whereas others don't. So yeah, for myself, I have only included autism and ADD, things like that, in neurodiversity, and not things that would also fall on the mental health, if that makes sense. It's just for myself personally. So this pie chart is if you also include the sums of diversity. So this is the diversity as a whole and not just the main characters, if that makes sense, but also the side characters are included, but they're only counted as half. Yeah, this probably makes no sense to anyone, but person of color increased a bit because it happens quite a few times that the book's main character is white and then they have a person of color as a friend. Neurodiversity decreased a bit. So now we get to the pie charts about the diversity per subject, if that makes sense. So 17% of the books had a neurodiverse main character, and 80% did not, and then 1% was some. Mental health, 38% had elements of mental health, 60% did not, and 2% had some. I do like to read about mental health, and it is in quite a few books, and sometimes it's difficult to say it, so I do what I felt, but yeah. Then we get to LGBT+, 16% is yes, 75% is no, and 9% is some. I kind of wish this was higher, to be honest, and I do feel like I have quite a few LGBT books on my TBR, and that I also read quite a few LGBT books, but then we have person of color, 32% is yes, 50% is no, and 18% is some. Then we get to disability, 17% yes, 80% no, 3% some. Again, I would like this to be higher, but it also depends what you count as disability, because depending on the autism representation, I class that sometimes as disability. I did also, and of course that's debatable, I did read some books about like people with physical disabilities, but yeah, I definitely would like to read more of those, so that might be something for the future. However, I'm a bit low on funds, so so other than my own books, I have to wait and see what happens. Health and illness. So this is not just physical disabilities, but also like illnesses and chronic illnesses, chronic pain. So yes, 20%, 75% no, and 5% some. But looks at this graph, it looks like I have a lot of no's, but the thing is, usually a book has like one or maybe two types of diversity and not like a bit in everything, if that makes sense. So a no from this graph might be a yes on the other ones, etc. Anyway.